So today we're going to be talking about dysfunction and how to overcome it. And we're going to talk about it as it relates to goals. And I love this topic because not everyone holds the same beliefs on goal setting. So to have some healthy, rich debate on this discussion, I've got my good friend and colleague, David Papa, joining us from Prague, Czechoslovakia. David, how are you, my friend?
Oh, very well, Brandon. Very happy to be here. You know, I love your work, and you're such a force in the leadership and workplace dysfunction space. So I'm just really honored anytime I get to hang out with you. Thank you.
The Brandon Smith bobblehead likes that. He opens with compliments. But this is already starting off great. So for those of you that haven't heard prior shows, David's been on the show before. David's the founder of Love and Profit. He's based in Prague, Czechoslovakia, and David does a couple things. So he's a group facilitator, an energy coach, and consultant. So you're really out there helping people create healthier workplaces, kind of one person, one group, one organization at a time. So we do a lot of kind of global work together. And we were chatting a few weeks ago, and we stumbled onto this interesting, different viewpoint on this topic of goals. So why don't you, I'm going to hand the baton over to you. Tell us a little bit about kind of how that conversation went for us and how it kind of came from on your end.
Yeah, well, I was in the middle of writing a post on my website called "Most Goals Are Useless and What to Do Instead." And then, so I took a break from my draft and I checked my email and I saw an email come in from you because I'm on your email list. It's a really good email list, people. Get on it. So workplacetherapist.com. So
the bobblehead agrees once again.
Yeah. So I saw your latest post was about goals. And, the title was something like, "You have to have goals." And I was like, oh no. And so I read it. And within the opening paragraph, you basically went completely the opposite from what I had just written about and said you despise people who don't want to have goals. And I was like, oh no. Like I felt like
I think I might have said something more along the lines of not having goals is like buying a lottery ticket to life. I think I might have said something like that.
Yeah, it was some metaphor that just like crunched me into a ball. But I stand by, what I believe and what I wrote. And I think actually, when I looked into more, tried to see what was underneath what you were writing, I think there are some commonalities between us, but there are also differences. I'm not a goals person. I wouldn't say that. I wouldn't advise people to go setting goals, and especially in any traditional way. So, we're going to see what happens today when we talk about it. I shared this experience I had with the blogs with you, and we had the idea to do this debate. So let's go. Okay.
So you said, I'm going to kind of throw the first shot. Okay. So you said you're not a goals person and you wouldn't advise people to set goals. Yeah. What does that mean?
I like how your head is moving. Like, this is ridiculous. Well, what it means is, okay, look, here's the thing. When I'm focused on people being happy in their life, I'm focused on people finding the practical ways to actually fall in love with their life and feel like a big just yes from inside themselves to what they're doing in life and work. This is what I believe we're all actually looking for. And how many people have you ever heard about or read when you ask them like, hey, are you a really happy person? And they say, yeah, I'm a super happy person. Well, why are you so happy? Because I achieved my goals. Or like,
fair point.
Or the opposite is what we hear a lot in the corporate world, right? Someone who's achieved every goal, they've gotten to a certain point in their company, they've got the title they want, they're at the company they set the goal to get to, they're at the salary grade they set their goal to get to, and they're miserable in their life and they want out, right? Yeah. So there's something about the way we approach goals that doesn't necessarily work for a lot of people. And, so that's where I'm coming from.
So, okay. So then what do you offer to people?
Oh, I just say, just make it up as you go along. No, there are specific things you can do. But I mean, but you agree with that, what I just said. So I would love to hear from you kind of you're like, yeah, I do see that with goals, but you still advise goals pretty strongly. So where are you coming from on that?
So I still advise goals because I think that goals gives people a sense of progress, a sense of satisfaction. So if I use a specific example that might be counter to what you said, let's say, for example, someone wants to lose weight. They say, I'm unhealthy. I want to get healthy.
Yeah.
Well, it's really helpful to say, okay, well, let's set some goals. Let's say every week, every day, you're going to get up and you're going to at least walk for 30 minutes today. And so they'd say, okay, well, I'm going to do that. And then you'd say, all right, now let's say we're going to go do a little bit of lightweight training, or you're going to work on your diet. And then they incrementally build on that. And so it gives them a sense of, okay, I know what I need to be doing. And a goal gives them a sense of destination. So here's an analogy that I would say that is counter to what you said earlier. And so we'll see if it works or not. We want to go on a journey. So what I'm hearing you say is just enjoy the ride, enjoy the journey. And then what I might offer, I'd say is, well, but it's also important to know if you're driving to Los Angeles, or you're driving to New York, or you're driving to, I wouldn't recommend driving to Prague from the US. That's probably not going to work very well.
Not yet.
But having a destination, I think, is important for people because it gives them a sense of, where am I going? And so a goal can serve that purpose. So now what do you think?
Yeah. Okay. Well, that's a good point. This idea of a destination, and this idea, I heard two things: the idea of a direction for what you're doing, and the idea of making some type of progress, kind of like seeing some progress as you're going along. I do think those two things are important. And it's well studied that humans just psychologically are really bad at knowing what's going to make them happy. Dan Gilbert has a whole TED Talk about this where he summarizes his research. We are really bad at predicting what's going to make us happy. So if you just sit down and try to come up with a goal that you have, you might get it and be one of those people who are like, I got what I want and it sucks. So what you're saying is what you're talking about, in my view, isn't actually a traditional goal, because a traditional goal is some set milestone or state in the future. It's some, if you want to make it smart, right? It's some measurable, actionable result in the future that you want to achieve in a certain amount of time. But we know that we're bad at predicting what future results are going to make us happy. In that situation where you talked about someone losing weight, you actually, most people would have said the goal of losing weight, most people would have said, I want to lose 15 pounds or whatever. But you didn't state it that way. You said the goal is to just get up every morning and go for a walk or go for a run. So that's actually, in my view, what in the way I'm talking about goals, that's different from a traditional goal. What you're talking about is a process.
Look at you taking my analogy and use it against me. I love it. Well played. Well played, sir. Again, we got another little corporate Aikido going on. There's a whoosh.
Yeah. My training is coming in handy. But yeah, what you're talking about, I think, is a process. What you're saying is, you didn't say focus on losing 15 pounds. You said focus on getting up every day and going for a run. And if someone does that, they're actually likely to start losing weight, right? But it's not about some future and vision state. See, this is one of the problems with traditional goals, is that we decide that because we need something to be better about our lives, and it's going to be better in the future when I have this particular thing. And now we create this distance, this gap between where we are now and the future. And if we look at why do we want the goal in the first place, it's not because of some physical circumstance. It's because we think we're going to feel different when we have the goal. I'm sure you've encountered this, in your coaching. If you ask somebody, why do you want the goal? Why do you want that? Okay, I want to get that job. Why do you want that job? Well, because that job is going to bring me more money. Why do you want more money? Well, because then I'll be able to afford a bigger house, for my family. Why do you want to get a bigger house for your family? Well, because then I will feel like I'm doing a better job at being like a provider for my family. Well, why is it important for you to feel like you're doing a better job providing my family? Because I really want to be someone who takes care of my family, and that's just going to feel really good to me. What I'm saying is every goal that we're seeking, actually, what we're looking for is the feeling state that goal is going to bring. But when we lock on to this future vision, some far future thing that I got to get, what we essentially decide in our minds is I can't have that feeling right now. I can't feel good enough in my life right now. I can't be happy right now. It's only going to happen when I get this thing. It's only going to happen later, far in the future. So it's a maladaptive future orientation when that happens.
You brought your A game today. I brought your A game today. Like, that's a really good argument. That's a really compelling argument. So now I got to bring my A game. I got to try and come at that with something compelling. Okay, so here you go. You ready? All right.
I'm scared.
So you've probably seen the research study with the chocolate chip cookies and kids. And the shorthand version of the study is they say that kids, and they're implying even us as people, have a really hard time suspending our immediate needs for future needs. But if we do, things can actually be better. So in the study, they tell kids, they put them in a room by themselves, and they put a plate of cookies in front of them. And they say, listen, if you don't eat a cookie now, you can get a bunch more later. But if you eat one now, you can only have one. And the kids, you could see them like just pain on their face. And they're getting all uncomfortable, and they're trying. And then some of them cover their eyes and try not to look at the cookie. And then eventually, almost all of them eat the cookie. And even if you take the analogy and extend it into adults, with people in terms of their finances, you see that as a real big problem in the world today, particularly in countries that have access to credit, like credit cards, personal debt. People go into high debt. And in the U.S., that's a real issue. They want the immediate gratification, and they can't suspend later. So part of the purpose of goals, I would offer to you, is it's a mechanism to ensure more discipline and to suspend happiness and gratification to a later point so it can be better. So what do you think about them apples?
Yeah. Nice one. Okay. So here's what I think about when I hear about that study. Now, they set up that study with kids, right? Because what they found correct me if I'm wrong, what they found was that people who were able to tap into this, some type of delayed gratification, tended to be more successful in the world, right?
Yes, that's the general. I don't know what data is behind that, but that's the general belief that is prevalent in the world. Yes.
So my question is, what is that success? What are they measuring? What does success mean? Does it mean people with a lot of money? Does it mean people in big job titles? Does it mean people who are CEOs? Does it mean people who are CEOs are more likely to have this delayed gratification thing? So what I would say is how many CEOs are actually genuinely happy with their life?
Yeah.
Again, I would bring it back to that. Did you know that when tests of psychopathic behavior are given to different segments of the population, that CEOs have a higher than average psychopathic tendencies than the rest of the population? This is a thing that's also, by a lot. So, the question is, what is this delayed gratification giving us the success that actually means happiness in our life? That's what I'm looking for.
Okay.
Now it's very important. It's very important what you said about people just going with what they feel in the moment and then kind of getting into debt. I totally agree with that. In fact, that happened to me in my 20s. I had racked up a lot of credit card debt, and when I look back at that, and when I talk to people who are going on with that, it also comes back to feeling states, and often feeling states people aren't aware of. They're trying to escape pain and seek pleasure, and in the moment, instead of dealing with those feelings, they buy something, And so I think, again, actually the underneath of why we are doing what we're doing comes down to feeling states. And for me, any process or advice that I give somebody about how to set things up in their life that's going to put them in the right direction has to include some use of feeling states. And traditional goal setting doesn't, which is one of the reasons, I wrote that article. It's one of the reasons why I'm taking this stance.
Okay, so we've hit the break. So when we come back from break, here's something I want to take on. It sounds like what you're hinting at, and really what we're circling, is happiness. How do we define happiness? What is happiness? What does that look like? So let's have a little bit of discussion around happiness when we come back from the break. And then let's see if we can reach some kind of agreement.
We can do it.
I don't know if that's good. I think so. I think we can. And then come to some path forward. Okay?
Great.
All right. So stay right with us. We're going to be right back after the break, and we're going to take on this idea of goals. Should we have them? Should we not? Good or bad? What's the happy answer? Be right back.
The right job, plus the right culture, plus the right boss equals workplace happiness. The number one reason people leave jobs is problems with their boss. A horrible boss can make us dread every Monday, but an amazing boss can make us so excited to work that we'd go in on weekends. Finding your perfect boss is not only possible, it's one of the most impactful steps you can take in crafting your perfect career. Visit theworkplacetherapist.com and click on guides to learn how to find and get your perfect boss, whether that means making the decision to move on or turning your current boss into the perfect leader you want them to be. Our bosses have so much influence over our work and our whole day. Working for the right boss alone can be a winning career strategy.
All right, welcome back to the Brandon Smith Show. Of course, I'm your host, Brandon Smith, and today I've got my good friend and colleague on the other side of the world, David Papa, joining us, and we're talking about goals. Whether goals are good, and we should have them in our toolkit, help us move forward, or whether they're bad, and they actually hold us back from real happiness. So, I alluded, David, before the break, sounds like what we're really talking about is happiness, and how do we define happiness? So I'm going to offer the first kind of thought around that, and I'd love to get your reaction to that. So while happiness is a somewhat of a subjective thing, and that how each person defines happiness is different, and while we would all argue that money is not the driver behind happiness, there is a school of thought, and even if you look at Maslow's hierarchy of needs, and you look at some of those foundations, that you have to have a certain level of stability, a certain level of success in life before you can actually have happiness. Because underneath that, you're in such a state of survival that it's difficult to be happy, because you're looking for food, you're looking for shelter, warmth, those kinds of relationships, those kinds of things. So talk to us a little bit about that. How do we wrestle with this idea of happiness when yet you still have to have some level of baseline success, quote unquote, to get there?
Well, you're right. If people are really struggling to meet their basic needs, they're in a survival mode, that clearly needs to be the priority. I mean, trying to take leaps up into the upper level of Maslow's pyramid.
And then if that's the priority, does that mean they need to have goals?
I don't know. Maybe you can come in. I
think I'm getting there, folks. I think I got a little ding. That's a little ding. Brandon Smith bobblehead's happy. He's nodding in agreement.
Yeah. Okay.
2 points. Okay, go ahead.
But very often, I think also when we're saying goals, things you're trying to create. Maybe we should define goals as well, because we're using this word, but I don't know if we're using it in the exact same way. When I am talking about goals, I'm talking about some future state that you think you need to get to for your life to be better than it is now. So, some future state you think you need to get to that is going to give you the feelings you want so you can actually be happy. But, you might be also using the word goals as just like, okay, clear track I need to take right now to change something, and I would refer more to that as a process, because it's not some milestone that you hit in the future. It's like, what are my daily actions going to be? How am I going to apply my energy right now? And I think processes and habits, are more useful an idea and than goals. And maybe that's actually what you're talking about. Maybe that's our common ground.
I think we found it.
That would be one of my that would be one of the things that I help people figure out, is the daily processes and habits that move their life direction in the way they want, without having to have some fixed future vision state that, that is going to be this end all pot of gold, that they're going to get to and then realize it wasn't what they thought. So if you're in a survival situation, you gotta focus on, what are the things I can do right now with the resources I have, with all the network I have, with just what I have in front of me to get through this, day to day. And so I would agree with you if you're talking about that as a goal. I would agree with that.
Yeah. So I'll a great segue into how I would define goals. I haven't actually done that yet. So if I was to define goals, I would say the purpose of a goal or goals is to essentially be kind of that magnetic pull that pulls you forward. It guides you down a path to do something, either new or different. So there's forward momentum. So you talk about purpose statements. Purpose statements can be a form of a goal. Why am I doing this? What's my mission in life? Because it forces you or it compels you to move forward. So I wouldn't say it forces as much as it compels. Vision statements, which is one level down. They often talk about in organizations, vision statements are big, hairy, audacious goals that are measurable, tied to a point in time. So by the time I'm 23, I want to graduate from college. By the time I'm 40, I want to make a certain amount of money. I'm not saying those are necessarily good, but they can compel you forward. So when I think about goals, it's about something that keeps you from just sitting and not moving forward. And so it has you learning and adapting. It gives you the reason or the motivation for doing that. That's how I define it. So it sounds like process fits within that for you.
It does fit within that for me. Yeah, it's very similar. I like how broad your definition of goals is, because, maybe it gives people more of a way to connect with a goal, something that compels them forward, that isn't a traditional, goal setting type technique. Because what I think is missing from the traditional goal setting, and what I would add into what you're saying, is this idea of the feeling states. Because many times what we think we want, or what we think we strive for, it's because we're trying to avoid something. We're trying to escape some type of pain that we're carrying. We're trying to escape some emotional discomfort. And the reality is that if we don't deal with that emotional discomfort inside ourselves, we're just going to face it again and again down the line. No goal can escape us from it. So the idea is to find, if we want to call them goals like you've defined, then we need to bring in our feelings, like, what's the thing that I can reach for that's going to compel me forward so I learn and adapt, that isn't coming from my mind, that isn't coming from what I think I should do, or society thinks I should do, or my parents think I should do, or what all the rules I have in my head thinks I should do. What is the thing that can compel me forward that is a match for the feeling states I want to have? So, for example, if I want to be in a life full of love and joy and high quality relationships and feeling peace in myself, what's the goal that matches that feeling state? And then what can I do right now that matches that feeling state? Because that's going to bring me toward that thing. So what I'm trying to help people do is stop this treadmill of trying to escape our uncomfortable emotional feelings, the spending, the running for titles, the rat race that a lot of people get caught up in. And instead, there are different ways to deal with those feelings than goals, but make your goals aligned with the beautiful feelings that you actually want to experience in your best life, and bring those feelings in your goal creating process, because those feelings are data about how your life could be best for you, uniquely you. And most goal setting doesn't include that. That's, I think, my main That's, I think, my main point.
So I'll add one thing to that, and then I've got a kind of a mini story, and then we'll start to wrap up.
Okay.
So, yeah, I would agree with that completely. You said something that I'd want to jump onto because I agree with it 100%, and I want to kind of reinforce it. I am not a fan of shoulds and supposed tos. I really despise shoulds and supposed tos because that's someone else setting goals for you, setting vision for you, or chasing ghosts, and that's not healthy or helpful to anyone. Now, all that to say, part of what makes what we're talking about today challenging for a lot of people is while I would honor everything you said and agree with it, some people just have an itch they have to scratch. No matter how hard you or I tell them, they believe that if they go get a job at that big, well-named company, they'll turn shiny. If they get a paycheck that hits $200,000, then they'll be shiny, and they'll hit some kind of new level of ascension in their brain. And then when 200 doesn't do it, then they go for 300, and then they go for 400. And so some people, no matter how hard you try, they have to hit that rock bottom until they're ready for a different way. So I'll start to move us to close by giving this aha moment I had a couple of years ago. So I've shared on this show a bunch that me and my family, we go to Disney a lot. And we typically, since we live in Atlanta, we go to Orlando, Florida, we go to Disney World. And so Disney World, it is a pretty intense place. And even the parents are pretty intense. It's kind of like do, go. Everybody's got their kind of their map of all the rides they're going to ride. And the parents are pushing their kids, and they're kind of East Coast parents, right? Get stuff done. Well, a couple of years ago, my family and I went to Disneyland out in California. Totally different vibe. The parents were laid back. They were like, just whatever. It's all going to be great. It's like not a big deal. However, the cast members were also laid back. They were like, yeah, whatever. Have a magical day, I guess. I don't really care. And it was a really interesting experience because I loved the vibe of the parents. But when I work with clients that particularly in Southern California, LA, they say they have a really hard time getting people to come to work because if it's a nice day, people just don't. They're like, no, I'm not coming to work. I'm going to enjoy the beach because I just want to really be today and enjoy the beach. And the aha hit me that the West Coast, generally speaking, in the U.S. is really good at being. And the East Coast in the U.S. is really good at doing. But there's something in between. You want to be able to balance both. Because if you just be, there's not always the forward momentum, either with your life or even more broadly with society. Like what's our motivation for creating a new drug to cure illness or disease or to create or do something? But if you're doing all the time, you lose all those little moments in life which matter. So I think what you're talking about is reminding us that being and enjoying other elements than just things as a result of career and workplace matter a lot. Is that fair?
Yeah. It is. It's a really good point. Really good insight about this balance between being and doing, and I know we got to close up. So maybe I'll just leave with a final little idea,
please,
which combines these two. And it's the idea that maybe you do have an itch you need to scratch, and maybe you're even aware of all the information that says we're not good at predicting what makes us happy, but you really want to go and get that milestone for yourself. Cool. Make sure that your journey along the way is a match for those feeling states that you want, because there's no such thing. It doesn't make sense to live our life like, okay, this thing I have to do every day, it sucks. But one day when it's done, when I hit that milestone, then I'll be happy. Like that's not a way for anyone to actually access happiness in their life. It doesn't work. We know it doesn't work. So when you are, if you're going to write a book, for example, you have a goal of writing a book, there are lots of different ways to go about writing a book. Okay. It's not about just discipline and planning and making the steps.
Are you saying that because I'm writing a book right now?
I'm trying to give you direct advice, Brandon, so you can finish your damn book. That's what I'm trying to do.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
If you're going to write a book, it's not just about the steps and the planning. It's about finding the path to write the book that's a match for the feeling states you want to have in your life. So it's combining the feeling and the doing with the daily stuff, the process along the way, because the process is 99% of your experience getting to a goal. You know, like if you're going to write the book, 99% of your experience is going to be the actual act of writing, researching, and all the stuff it takes to get. And then you have the book in your hand, and you're like, take the picture. Book is done. Am I happy now? You know, like it makes more sense for you to find the path to write the book that's happy along the way, and that's going to look unique to you. And I think that's where a lot of people get tripped up with their goals. They're focused so much on the future state, they don't realize I need to build in the way I want to feel in my life now along the way. I can create, I can do, I can move forward. But if I'm not paying attention to my feelings, I'm going to end up in one of those traps where I look back 10 years and I'm like, what have I even done? You know?
Yeah.
So I think that's what I would say. How I put it together. That's how I would put it together.
Amen, brother. Amen. Amen. So we don't have time for our life hack, but I would like to ask you, if people want to learn more about you and what you're up to these days, where can they go?
Oh, easiest place is loveandprofit.com. They can find out about me and views on the world. And actually, Brandon, you inspired me so much. I've just started the Love and Profit show. So, that's something, it's an experiment. I'm getting off the ground to see, I don't have a goal for it. I'm doing it because it feels really exciting to me to have these kind of conversations with people and talk about these topics more. And if anyone out there, is interested in listening, it would be great for them to participate in the experiment with me, and we'll see where it goes together. We'll co-create it, That's cool. Yeah. So thanks very much. That's where they can find me, loveandprofit.com.
Awesome, David. Awesome. Well, as you know, you're a gift, man. I'm so glad you were on the show. Thanks for helping me see the light a little bit. And I think we came to some really good kind of understanding around goals. So thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. Continue to join the fight of fighting against dysfunction every week on The Brandon Smith Show, 9:30 Eastern on Sunday evenings. We drop a new show. And if you haven't checked out my website, my web designer just did a fresh overhaul. So check it out. It's theworkplacetherapist.com. So you can get to my blog, past show episodes, and anything else. It's a resource there to help you. So until next week, have an awesome week and an awesome life.